on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
Dentists like to know that first off, dentistry is practiced so many different ways in different places and all this stuff. And I think sometimes dentists like to know what stuff is out there, but also that they're normal, that they're not, that what they're doing isn't so weird or what have you. And I think that podcasting is a really good tool to make. I think my most engaged listeners are regular dentists. They're like, man, it's nice to know that I'm not the only one that sees this stuff. If you're expecting your profession to bring you life satisfaction, you might be in trouble for that. I know some people that really, they have their satisfaction in life from the profession. I think that's folly. I think you need to have people around you, whether they're at work or at home or, a community, a church, a mountain biking group, a running club. You need to have people around you.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 514. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for being with us today. Our guest today, he is the very reason that this show ever existed. Dr. Alan Mead is our guest. Just looking back, without that Facebook group all those years ago, I never would have found Michelle. I wouldn't have known where to start. I wouldn't know some of the software and hardware, how to log in accounts and how to get the RSS feed, all the things that I did to get this thing started. He basically taught me. And then, just over the years, just having conversations about how to keep improving different little things, mic technique and the like. But in addition to being a great podcast host, Dr. Mead practices dentistry up in Michigan. And by all accounts, he's what I would consider an everyday dentist. And he talks a little bit later on in the show how he fell into this great practice coming out of school after graduating. He lives in the same kind of smallish sounding town, surrounded by family, not far away. And he just does his thing. He goes to work and comes home, goes to work, comes home. But at the same time, he isn't just any dentist. He's hungry for learning and evolving. He spends a ton of money on travel and CE. And so this podcast is kind of about those two concepts. Like, how do you take tradition and that stick-to-itedness while also finding ways to satisfy that desire to get better? And then when you learn more, how do you also take that and incorporate those new things into your everyday practice and the challenges that come with just something that seems like it should be so easy, but it's really not. So those are some of the things that we talk about and kind of the theme for the episode. I might have said this in the conversation that we had, but just in case I didn't, Alan has been really good to me for more than 10 years. He's been a mentor of sorts in ways of technical podcasting and gear and listening to all my dumb ideas for what podcasting could be in dentistry and things like that. He's been a sounding board when the woes of the podcasting industry, I guess, make you want to just pick up all of your chips and cash out. He's also a community builder. He's a networker at seemingly a low-key level, but it's an incredibly impressive level of people that he actually knows and networks with. But he doesn't flaunt it. He's not overt about it. It's pretty incredible. And quite honestly, he's a dentist who I would drive a really long way to have work done for myself and my family if we ever needed it. And for me, that's probably the highest compliment that I can pay him. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode with him. I had a ton of fun recording it, and I hope that you all walk away with something to think about. All the conversations I've ever had with him, I feel like I've always kind of walked away with something to at least mull over, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for you all today. Thanks again for listening, and here is the interview.
A tale of two hygienists.
Listeners, welcome into the interview portion of the podcast. Joined today by Dr. Alan Mead. Alan, thank you for being here.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I am so stoked for this. I've talked over the years about podcasting for, I mean, probably into the nitty-gritties that no one else really gives a crap about, but I'm
Exactly, yes.
hoping that part of this conversation that we have today, yes, dentistry, of course, but also, because I do have, like, this whole thing about endurance that I wanna talk about because I think that you're, like, the right person for this. But also just like, hey, we got some new podcasters coming into the Tell 2 Hygienist family. I'm hoping that we're gonna be able to give them some good advice too. So, like, that's kind of the makeup of this particular episode. But thank you for being here. And by the way, you're just coming back from a course over in Washington State.
Yes, correct. I
Tell me more
was
about that because you've been at Bioclear many times, so haven't you?
Yeah, I have, but, it's funny, but, I'm gonna actually record an episode about this. I feel like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the guy. Maybe I just can't s but, like, I took the course, I've taken multiple courses out there. I know all the stuff. I have all the stuff. I still wasn't doing all the stuff, and to be perfectly honest, I forgot about some of the great stuff there. It's like it makes me laugh a little bit. I'm like, "Oh, wow. This is awesome. I have this stuff, and I haven't been doing it because I just" I think everyone sort of gets in a rut even though BioClear is 2 different things. It's like, you've got the major season, it's the gear, the equipment, and then there's, like, the whole method. I was pretty good with the gear. I would use the gear when it was appropriate. The method is sort of like you have to sort of drink the Kool-Aid a little bit, and I never really drank the Kool-Aid. I think I'm closer to drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker, though. I'm not a good joiner. We'll probably talk about that. I'm just not a very good joiner. I don't fall in line very easily, and it isn't because it's because I think it might be partly lazy, partly maybe I don't think anyone else has better ideas than me, which is not true, obviously, but it's I don't know, I'm sort of resistant to being a joiner, but the reality is that I really got a lot out of the course even though I had known all the concepts. It's kinda funny, but that's where it was.
Well, I think that's gotta be all of us, though, right? I think that's why we need to keep doing CE. I think
Yes.
that
Yes.
all of us are resistant to not it's not change, right? Like, we like change. You like change, we like change, but, like, within what we know, change is cool.
Mhm.
But if you're trying to sell me on this new thing, like, man, I can put in a filling like nobody's business. I
Yeah.
got this, like, it's
Yeah.
functional enough. It's good enough. It's pretty darn good.
And I think what you're used to is very comfortable. And so on some level, it takes okay. Do you remember in chemistry when they talked about, like, when your electron has to go bump up to the next level of it takes a certain amount of energy to go to the next I can't remember the words. Uh-oh. No, my son's in chemistry. I'm gonna have to go and review it. But the bottom line is that I remember it took a lot of energy to get the electron from the first layer to the second layer. It takes not only does it take energy for me to, like, change things up, it takes consistent energy for me to keep doing it. Until that becomes the norm, and I'm not even sure that anything can ever become the norm if you've got what I'm saying is I'm set in my ways. I learned bad habits early on that are hard to break, and that's where I feel like the BioClear thing is sort of like, look, this is the next level, and it's gonna take some energy in my life and practice to consistently do it. I'm glad I did it. It's CE that I've taken before, although there's frankly a lot of new stuff too.
Mhm.
So it was worthwhile, but I honestly think, like, look, read your directions. Like, how often you read directions of materials that you're using, and you know what? You're probably doing it wrong. You're probably doing it wrong because you remember the directions from I know there's certain materials I use where the directions changed and I never knew. It's just wild. How many times do I need to apply my bonding agent? Well, I've applied ultradense bonding agent twice. I look at the instructions. There's nothing saying that I need to apply it twice. I don't think it hurts anything. But the bottom line is,
Right.
like, I hadn't read the directions. Like, going to BioClear for 4 days was a little bit like a very long experience of reading the directions that I so you just gotta pay attention. You just gotta kinda hold yourself to it. That's what I'm saying, for me.
Do you feel like that if you had and this is going back to, like, the whole, like, take your team to these, events, whatever, like, so that
Mhm.
you took your assistant and be like, "Hey, I need you to keep us going on this train because I will do it if you will make sure that I remember to do it, but, like, if you leave it to my own devices, I'm gonna forget to do it all the time."
I mean, that is awesome. The assistant also is used to what you're used to, and
Yeah.
frankly, you could probably tie it to a financial thing, I suspect, if, in other words, if it was better for them, if you d that's actually what it might take for me, at some point, that's what it might take for me. It's okay. I'm working on it, but I'm very glad I went. 4 days worth of CE, man. I was tired at the end. Like,
No, I bet.
the very last exercise, you're like, "Okay, you know what? I think I'm about done here. I'm about done here." My brain is yeah, it was great though. I'm glad I went. I'm really glad I went.
All right, I wanna shift a little bit, you know, podcasting.
Mhm.
Your show's been around, gosh, I wanna say, is it 11 or 12 years now?
Well, June 2014. So, we're
So
working on we're on our 12th year. We've done
mhm,
11 years and, so yeah, next June 2026 will be 12 years, yeah. That's a long time. My
it's
gosh.
such a long time.
Yeah.
Well, and this is kinda like the whole endurance in dentistry kind of like concept. But actually, before we jump into that, here's my thought. Like, I remember early on, everyone was kind of reaching out. Like, you'd built a nice little community. Everyone was like trying to help each other in this space, and we were all trying to get started. Are people still reaching out to you and be like, "Hey, I kind of want to get started in this podcasting thing," or is that kind of died off?
That sort of died off. I think the Facebook group is still going, but it sort of died off, and I honestly think because, and this I don't wanna shift gears too fast, but I think, like, podcasting, the way that I started doing it doesn't exist in the same way. I mean, you and I do audio podcast stuff, but, like, so much of it is video and so much of it is social media content. I mean, when you think about 11 years ago, yeah, I don't know if Instagram even existed 11 years ago. Like, I'm not,
Yeah, I don't know.
like, it's so, like, the conventional podcast that I was doing 11 years ago just doesn't really exist. It does, that's not true. It exists, but now that's not an attractive when people even say the word podcast, I think they think more of Joe Rogan and video. And
Yeah.
audio for a lot of these things for like, you'll hear podcasters say, "Oh, yeah, you can get an audio version of it too if you want to," which blows my mind because I always, my concept was always audio because it was like listening to something when you were doing something else. That was always
Yeah.
what, and that's how I use podcasts now too. But I think probably a lot of the podcasts that I even listen to actually are video podcasts, and I just listen to the audio. So it's very different in that way. And I don't get people reaching out because I'm not sure audio podcasting is growing really right now. I don't know. I'm not sure how you
I
get
was
new
going to
listeners.
ask about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I'm not.
I think you're right. I think it is, and I don't think it was a shift necessarily. I think it was kind of always there. And then when you're jumping into the space, you just jump into the video, and then that's where your jumping off point is. And now all the tools and automation stuff that's out there. I mean, you think about your Skypeosaurus thing that you built forever ago compared
Right.
to like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, the audio quality. We dump our the MP3 files into like just an AI thing
yep,
with Adobe,
yep.
and it kinda cleans up the background. I'm like, you know how hard it was to manual I remember watching, Lance give a
Oh god,
tutorial
yeah.
on, like, and I don't recall a thing, but I think it was in, Audition,
It
and it
was
was, like, all the
Audition
different
probably,
color
yeah,
contrasts and all
yeah,
the I'm like, "Holy moly, like, this
yeah,
is next level, like, editing."
yeah,
People don't have to do that anymore.
no.
And so I think, you look at all the podcasts now, I'm like, "Wow, that's some really good, quality video and audio." Like, that
And
must
they
have
didn't
taken
have
forever and just
they didn't
doesn't.
do anything to it. Yeah, they didn't do anything to it.
Nah.
I will say that the Adobe, what's wild about that Adobe thing is if you have really poor quality on the other end, if someone's got, like, a bad connection or something like that, it's amazing what it can do to clean that up. I
Mhm.
do think that the AI likes to if you'll notice, sometimes AI throws these weird ghosts in there too, like in the audio, and that's sort of so I don't use it as much as I would, 'cause it almost sometimes and it allows you to kinda dial in and out where you're doing it. Do you do that at the end? Like, once you've edited it down, then you put it in
Uh,
and have it clean it up? I've never tried it at the end.
Usually individual tracks, actually, and I don't do it with music around because then you do get the
Yeah.
little weird things
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on. I try
yeah,
not to do it where there's too much mic bleed
yeah.
because then it'll, like, amplify my
That's what
little
it does, that's what
"mhm"
it does,
or whatever. It's
it's
like,
weird,
"Shoot."
and every once in a while, you'll hear someone go, on well, I can tell podcasts that use that, and they don't really know what they're doing because 'cause they'll be talking along, and then all of a sudden, they'll go, "Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep." It's so weird, right? And I'm like, "Oh, they're using that." Because I know the tools are there, and why not use them? For someone who had to do it themselves for a long time, I'm a little more skeptical of it, but I mean, I'll say this, the AI as far as being able to, like, throw a finished episode into AI, and it made show notes 1,000 times better than I ever did. because I didn't have the
Yep.
tolerance to, remember I'd listen to the episode at 2 times to try and pull things out to take notes on. And you throw the episode into an AI, and it's like, wow, it's amazing. I probably, for me, maybe the best use of AI that I have at all is just making a framework for my show notes that I then edit. It's pretty funny, like, that I thought I was pretty quick at editing. Now with that, I'm really quick at editing, so it doesn't
What do you
bug.
use for what tool do you use for that?
Well, okay, so if I'm audio editing, I used to use Audition, but I will then throw the final. Okay, so here's my process. I go to Audition and I'll record. I record either on Squadcast or Riverside, and then sometimes I'll just let those softwares mix the recorded track if the audio is decent enough. Then I add that into. I have a template in Audition that has all the bumper music and all that stuff. I throw it in there and I adjust levels, make sure it sounds pretty good. I'll export that as a WAV. That people who are listening to this are just going, "You gotta be kidding me."
Yeah, they're done.
That's okay. This is for Andrew and I anyway. I export that as a WAV. I throw it into Auphonic Leveler, which is a
Okay.
software I've been using for 1,000 years. Honestly, I would use it only for the fact that they're the nicest German people you've ever met in your life. If you have any questions, they will email right back. They're so happy that you're using the product. I bought the product years ago. License is still good. I can use it on multiple computers, and it does exactly what it says it does. It levels. So even though I'm decent at leveling, this does a really good job with it. I take that Auphonic, and then I'll bounce an MP3 off it. So that's kinda my final track, and then I throw that into Descript, and Descript there's a lot of software that can grab audio and make a transcript out of it. I just happen to start using Descript, and then typically, I will either ask Descript to help me with the show notes, but what I really do is I'll grab that transcript and throw it over to Google Gemini and ask for very specific things, and Google Gemini just delivers, man. It's really good at coming up with show notes. So I can't even say that I do the audio manually because I have a bunch of these tools, but I don't have AI do the audio unless if one of my tracks is bad. Like, I will say this, if one guest doesn't have great sound, I'll grab track by track, and then I can edit it down, and then sometimes I'll throw one of their tracks into the AI, or I can adjust it on Audition too. But I have to say I've gotten away from. I don't even do that much, multiple track editing anymore because the inputs are usually so good. I mean, if a person on the other end has a microphone and headphones and they're in a relatively quiet room, it sounds quite good usually. So I don't know. It
Yeah,
depends on. I will say this: it's nice to podcast with podcasters because they already have gear, so there's much less cleanup at that point. That's for sure.
for sure. Yeah. Um, are you? I've seen you on a couple other shows. Are you asked to be a guest very much anymore? Because at the beginning, again, you were like on everybody's show.
I used to be. Not as much now. That doesn't really offend me. I don't mind being on other people's shows, but I don't feel like I've been on that many shows. Probably earlier on I was.
Mm.
And then whenever we were promoting Voices of Dentistry, I was on everyone's show because I was trying to get people to sign up for the meeting. So that's it. But I mean, I'm happy to do it. Being on other people's show, it's very natural because you're so used to talking into a microphone for, how many thousands of hours have we done that? So it's not like it's hard. It's not a big ask. I remember, the first time I was on someone's show was probably Grant and Jason. They did the Prism podcast 1,000 years ago. I was on that first and I was very anxious. I think I bought a microphone for that. And then I was on Bilal's podcast. And of course, again, but I'm like, man, I could do this. And that's when I decided I was gonna go ahead and do it. It's just sort of so being on them tends to make you think you could do it. And you're right. And so that's what it worked out. So I've been on a bunch of them over the years, but not as many now. Um, and I was gonna say I have the capacity to do video now. I mean, like I'm sitting in my basement right now and I have like lights so it doesn't look too bad or anything like that. So even video podcasts I can do. I just haven't so much. I don't know why.
Well, it's I don't know if it's everyone's just like kind of siloed and they kind of do again. They're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
exploring what else is already out there. They don't maybe. Are you surprised when people are like, I have never heard of your show before?
I am. I'm not surprised. I'm
Right?
not surprised because
You're not. I
it
am.
doesn't surprise me that much because for one thing, I mean, we're talking like a whole generation of like I think the early adopters of podcasting are now middle-aged dentists, at this point. Like Like Gen Xers and millennials are relatively old in dentistry, and so like a lot of
Yeah.
the podcasting space is taken up by influencer types now and video
Yeah.
stuff. So it's a little it's a different the audience that are looking for stuff. Although I love it when I hear I literally have people that are still asking to join the Very Dental Facebook group, and they're like, "Oh man, I've been listening to you since the Dental Hacks days. I've been listening to you since dental school." So that's pretty great. So they're out there. They're out there.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the engagement is a little thinner than it used to be, although, I there's still plenty of engaged people in the Facebook group too, so I have no complaints.
Well, I mean, it happens on every medium, right? Even Facebook, how people are not as engaged as they once were unless it's a very specific group or whatever. So one of the things we're doing is we are running some like interview questions and stuff to these potential co-hosts for a Tale to Hygienist, right?
Yep.
And so I got a couple of the questions, and one of the questions that we asked them, all right, there's a couple questions we asked them. I want to ask you too, just kind of get your thoughts on it. And then there's some questions that we had said, like, if you had Andrew on as a guest, like, what would you ask him?
Mhm.
A lot of it had to do with podcasting, which kind of surprised me in a weird way. I know it's a podcasting thing, but I'm like, I've done a
Yeah.
lot of dentistry. Like, talk to me about other stuff. But I'm like, you know what, though? I want to talk to Helen about that because that's a really good question. Oh, by the way, shout out to Dr. B, Bilal. I
Yeah.
just saw him under one roof
Oh, nice. Nice.
in
How's he
Dallas, I
doing?
think it was. He's doing really good. He went with his team. And I'm like,
Good
what are you
on
doing?
him,
He was like a
man.
hygiene
That's
like conference,
what a
but good.
guy. What a guy.
He
That's
is so
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love him.
he's a
Anyways,
sweet guy.
all right. So here, let me read this question real quick. All right. So this is about the whole like dream episode concept, right? So if you had a dream guest, a dream episode, is there anyone like in this dental world that you haven't been able to get on the show yet? And maybe it's not even dental. Maybe it's outside of dental. Like, what would the dream episode concept look like for you?
Gordon Christensen would be interesting to talk to. I talked to Rella early on. She was
Mhm.
fantastic. We haven't talked to him. My thing would be I'd like to ask him about what dentistry was like, what dentistry was like for him early on. Because early on for him is probably the 1960s, like old
Yeah.
school stuff. I mean, I think that would be very interesting. Um, I haven't talked to John Coyes yet. I talked to Frank Spear a bunch of times. I haven't talked to Dr. Coyes. That would be very interesting as well. And I mean, I have connections and stuff. I just haven't swung that yet. But what I've found is that I don't know that there's too many people outside of dentistry that I would talk to on this kind of a podcast. I'm interested. It's really funny. I've got 2 interests. I've got interested in big picture, looking at the profession as a whole kind of questions for people. And then I really like talking to individuals that are like regular folks because I have to say I think people like the episodes the most that are regular dentists that are just like talking about what they do on a regular basis. And because I think dentists like to know that first off, dentistry's practiced so many different ways in different places and all this stuff. And I think sometimes dentists like to know what stuff is out there, but also that they're normal, that they're not that what they're doing isn't so weird or what have you. And I think that podcasting is a really good tool to make. I think my most engaged listeners are regular dentists. They're like, man, it's nice to know that like I'm not the only one that sees this stuff. That is my niche, if there's anything.
Mhm.
I am as I get older, I wonder what the profession is going to look like in 10 or 15 years. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little worried about it. I also think that the profession has gone wrong in some ways, and I haven't been super open about that. I haven't dug into that, but I do think that's real. And there's times I've thought about making a podcast about the profession of dentistry for non-dental people. And the only
Oh,
reason I haven't
interesting.
done it is that I think there'd be about 4 listeners out there because I think people don't really want it. Like, I don't think people care. One of the things that dentists have a problem with is people don't think about dentistry very much unless they need it. It's not like there's people going to bed at night going, "I can't wait for my aesthetic makeover." I mean, a lot of times I just think dentists think that other people think about dentistry more than they really do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but we think about it because it's our life, and so that's why my audience has always kind of been that. I've thought about doing some kind of a podcast about dentistry for non-dental people, and like I said, the reason I don't is I'm not sure that there's enough need for that. Even if it was a tell-all, even if it was good, bad, and ugly of dentistry, I just don't know that there's that much. Because if you've ever looked at the comment section on any article written about dentistry, it makes you wanna fall on your sword and poke your eyes out. Like, people just it's amazing to me how little people know about our profession, even though so many of them partake in it. It's very weird to me. So those things are that I find that over the years, that those things are the most interesting. That like the day-to-day weird normie stuff of dentists and then the profession as a whole. Those things are kind of my I don't know if it's my focus, but it's definitely my interest lately.
Well, let's shift to that because that is a question I had on here was exactly that 10-year look or whatever. Because you've had enough guests, you go to these conferences and you talk to people all the time. You're looking at what has changed in the industry. So this is a two-part question. These are the questions also that were asked to me. From your vantage point, seeing the many sides of dentistry, what do you expect will change in dentistry in 10 years? And what maybe do you hope will change in 10 years? Then also, do you think it's still a good profession if you were to have a niece or a nephew want to get into the profession?
I'm gonna answer the second one first. No, I wouldn't tell them to go into dentistry. I absolutely would
Really?
not. If
Okay.
unless you can get a military scholarship where they're paying for it. That's the only
Yeah.
way, because it's honestly, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, and I think it's only gonna get worse at this point. I think the fact that people have come out with so much debt has changed the way that they look at patients, changed the way they look at what their job would be, what their professional obligations are. The reality is like, I still think, Dr. Coy said the best dentistry is no dentistry, and that is true. Minimally invasive for me is where it's at. Dentistry is not anything about minimally invasive. I mean, I think most dentists, 95+% of dentists would think, they look at a patient's condition and say, "I can do something that can make their condition better." I hate that.
Mhm.
I hate that. Now, clearly, there's tons of people with disease, yes, but, like, we shouldn't be looking at patients as the way that we can produce something on them. That's just not the way we should look at patients as, and figure out their need, and I just feel like right now, a young dentist coming out of school is desperately in debt. They've been sold a bill of goods on what their lifestyle is gonna look like when they get out of dental school. I only know that because I was too. I was too. So I feel like we're going in the wrong direction, and it's a money thing more than anything. I think the technology dentistry is very cool. I hope that continues the way that it is. I would like to think that we're gonna be turning out a lot of ethical dentists that are looking out for the best interests of their patients. I don't believe that that's the case right now, but I don't think it's because 'cause they're
Well, how
bad.
do you monetize it, right? Though, I mean, how do you monetize health?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is monetizing is kind of the problem on some level. I'm like, yes, dentistry is a business, but we're actually kind of supposed to take our patients' needs. Like I love the fact that you should be doing X amount of scaling and root planing in your practice. I'm like, yeah, but what if I have really healthy young patients that don't have gum disease? Like what? Like
Mhm.
you can't. I don't know. I think that in a lot of ways we look at monetization is kind of the problem in some way. It's not to say that practices don't need to make money. I get it, but like right now, what we've done is we've turned out a bunch of new dentists they don't even have a chance because they're so. I mean, they have to hit the ground running. I mean, these kids are coming out with $300,000 and $400,000 worth of debt before they've ever drilled on a tooth for money. Wow, I don't know what kind of pressure that would be personally, because
Do you
I mean
think though let me push back on that. Do you think okay, let's just like scenario is they have no debt coming out of school, but the societal pressures, the keeping up with the Joneses, the I'm a dentist and dentists are supposed to be rich, not really, but that's kind of like the
no,
thing.
totally. That's
You know,
that's
like
the message you're
I'm
getting.
yeah, so it's like what isn't that also kind of the same pressure? It's not just school debt, like it's compounding, I think, like for all of the outside forces.
Sure.
There's
I will
there's no
I
getting out of it.
I'm gonna say this. If you told a dental student that you're gonna have a $5,000 stroke every month before your education for 30 years, which is essentially what we're talking about, the way interest rates are now,
Mhm.
that they're never told that in stark words. Like if you've got that much to start, and you're getting into this as much as everyone says, "I'm here because I like to help people." No, dentistry is supposed to be a lucrative career that has a good income potential and has a good lifestyle potential. That's hard. It doesn't add up all that well in the beginning in a lot of cases. I think ownership for new dentists is a lot harder, a lot rarer. I mean, and I say that as a guy who freaking tripped into ownership. Like literally, I bought my practice 1 year out of school. I didn't know anything. And I was able to make it work because the pressures weren't there that are there now. I don't think you could be as clueless as I was now and get away with it, and certainly not with ownership. You're not gonna find a practice like there's no practices like the one I bought for sale. That's for darn sure. I mean, I bought a I my practice was it was definitely a diamond in or it was a diamond in the rough, but it was also like the guy had left. I mean, it was a fire sale. I mean, there's just not that many of those out there. So,
I keep hearing about those, practices kinda like in, middle of the country, kind of maybe also further from the big cities.
mhm.
Are those still pretty hot commodities, or those
I
are all gone now too?
I mean, I think so, but the problem again with that is that no one wants to live there. That's like the people who are okay living there, they're cleaning up. I mean, they're but there's again, that's a limitation a lot of people put on themselves, and that's I always figure, you can live close to where the need is, and then you can go to the cities on the weekend if you wanna enjoy culture or what have you. Yeah, you could figure that out if you wanted to. I say that with someone with some I actually like living in the country, so that works out pretty good for me if I wanted to be rural, but, I do think that because that's, underserved people still like to live in cities. Right now, the big joke around here would be, it'd be really hard to be a dentist in Ann Arbor, but that's where all the new grads from the University of Michigan wanna live. They
Yeah.
wanna live in Ann Arbor because that's where they went to school, it was great there. I'm like, "My god, though, there's gotta be so many dentists in Ann Arbor. Holy cow."
Well, and with you mentioned earlier, like, with such a younger population though too, there's probably
Yeah.
not the
Yeah,
prevalence of
probably
disease in the
not
same
enough
way.
well, except, I think they a lot of weed and vaping, so,
Okay.
maybe it's
So there might be. I've had it kind of in my head this last several years. There's a lot of changes in dentistry, and one of them is that about this permanence thing. Like, you think like Gordon Christensen, back in the '60s or whatever, like there's a permanent, like he's going to open up shop and he's going to stay there for forever. And I
yes,
think
yes.
as of course now he went on to do lots of different other things, and
Yep,
so that
yep.
changed a little bit. But
I think the
it's
dude's
like,
still practicing though, to be honest, on some
it's
level.
he,
I think he is. I don't know
he's
I don't know
probably
if he
got
has
his
a
finger
regular
stuff with.
practice, but I mean, he's still, I think he still spins a handpiece, which is amazing.
It seems though like like that, okay, this tenacity, this we have to endure, the hardships, we have, the ebbs and the flows of a business, the economy, and all these things. If we set up shop, we're gonna, it'll be good sometimes, it'll be bad sometimes. There's be a lot of stuff in between.
Mhm,
But now it feels like all of these graduates and also associates, they have so much choice now. Like
mhm.
both lifestyle and just, I mean, the world is their oyster. They can kind of go anywhere, be an associate for a little bit. If they don't like it, maybe they weren't getting the favorable terms, or maybe they just didn't like the person they were associating for. Like it was just whatever. Then they pick up and they move. They pick up and they move.
Mhm.
We keep hearing how patients are getting more and more frustrated. I mean, hygienists do that too, right? And people are getting just really, really frustrated about this thing. And I'm wondering if, like, you as a person, you're guy, I'm gonna, set up shop, I'm gonna endure this stuff. You're still doing the podcast after all these years, like that's got to be hard with all the changes that are there. Do we need to see a resurgence in this kind of permanence thought, or does dentistry need to adapt and find a way to make all of this work? Because it seems like everyone's
Excellent
frustrated.
question. Excellent question. First off, I struggle with, turnover, hygienist turnover, even myself. I haven't not as well, I have friends in California, and I know it's at, like, the market is at this point, if you have a hygienist as a regular employee, it's rare out there. So, I mean, like, on some level, that kind of impermanence of who's delivering your care, it's really hard to have a philosophy of care that you're delivering if you don't have the same people on your team any given week, it's like a so that and I know patients that have chosen to go to okay, so we have an Aspen Dental in Saginaw, and I think a lot of patients are a little bummed out that literally their dentist is different every time they go there. Like, you might have one person prep a crown and another person seat a crown. That seems like, wow, it's like a barber shop when you get in line and you get whoever's cutting hair. That's like, whoa. I don't know that I want that. Although if everyone's excellent and delivers the care well and are kind, maybe it works out. I do think that the choice part is interesting because I've not been on that end of it because I've been in the same practice for 27 years, it's like I've only known that, but actually the employee thing is sort of interesting. So do we need to move towards more permanence? I don't think we're going to have that choice. I think the market's going to dictate what happens. And frankly, I think employee lifestyle, I think if your office is toxic to employees, they're gonna go because 'cause they've got options. Post-COVID, I mean, uh, salaries are up 20 some percent since COVID. I mean, and if someone doesn't like your office, they can probably find something else that's comparable or even paid better. So it's like, you better consider that, I think I give a pretty good place to work. I don't have a ton of employee turnover, but I pay them really well too for the area and everything like that, because I feel like I know at this point you kinda have to. There's no paying them not very well and having them stick around. Just doesn't exist anymore. So that's one thing. I like the permanent thing. I like the fact that I've seen patients. I've got patients I've seen for 20 some years. I love that. I think some patients really like that. I think a lot of patients don't have that expectation anymore, because in medicine, for sure, they don't. Like,
Oh, interesting.
when you compare how dentistry is delivered compared to medicine, dentistry is still a way better experience, I think, on the whole, than
Mhm,
medicine.
mhm,
Like, at this
mhm.
point, like, if you had to find a physician right now, would you be able to find a regular physician? That's hard to come by now. It's weird. So I don't have a great answer for that. I like, the permanence has worked well for me, but that might be my personality too.
Well, also, it's like if I think all these people are chasing that extra buck, like they're looking for something like a happiness or a joy that they just don't ever seem to ever find though, right? Is they're always just chasing and they're never like landing. I'm like,
Well, for one thing,
there's
if
something
if
broken here.
if you're expecting your profession to bring you life satisfaction, you might be in trouble for that. I mean, I know some people that really, they have their satisfaction in life from the profession. I think that's folly. I think you need to have people around you, whether they're at work or at home, or a community, a church, a mountain biking group, a running club. You need to have people around you. And I'm going to tell you that I struggle with this myself. I don't have a lot of in-person friends around my home. Like, so many of my people, my friends, are internet people. They're almost all dentists or dental people, and they're all around the country. I don't have a ton of in-person friends, and I lack for it, to be honest. Like, I look at, so my son, as you know, my son is in the band. He's a senior in the band, and he's in all kinds of music groups, not just high school. He's in, and I think to myself, he has a social situation where he sees people in person every week for an entire year. Like, he sees that. I remember that from when I was in the band, when I was a kid and stuff like that. I'm like, that's interesting. Like, this is an in-person, you can't do the band over Zoom. They tried in COVID, it doesn't work, man. They lost high school music programs lost kids like crazy, because you can't, it's real hard to do band over Zoom,
Yeah.
It's like there's
Yeah.
so there's some places where you almost have to be forced into, and I would say that I'm forced into social situations the most at work, because you can't do dentistry over Zoom either. But the reality is like, that's not, it's great if you get along with the people you work with and you like your patients, but that's not that's an artificial situation. I mean, these people are choosing you to get care from, but you're not going out and having coffee with them. You're not, I don't know. I feel like the solution to not being able to find joy in your work is making sure you have people in your life, whether that's family. I mean, luckily for me, my entire family, my extended family is very close. I mean, I can drive to my parents' house in 15 minutes, and my sister is, same distance. It's like, so I have some of that, but social media has made it real easy to not have in-person friends. And so in-person relationships, like, and I think that's really important. And if you start leaning on your job or your profession for that, you might, I mean, maybe some people do well with that, but I think it's probably folly. I don't think your meaning should not be wrapped in to your profession in that way, in my opinion.
I I I I personally struggle with this because I think that's I was raised differently where your identity is who you are at work and kind of all these
Interesting.
different things, and so
Yeah.
like
I
that
think I
it's
think
kind of
my
it's so hard to
dad's generation was, he misses being a
yeah,
dentist every day. He's retired. He misses every
yeah,
day.
yeah,
But he also has, I will say this, he has people. He goes to coffee with his buddies most days, and he does church stuff. He does more than I do. I mean,
Yeah,
shit, I'm
yeah.
I'm sitting in the basement talking to you. I don't even know where you are. It's hilarious. It's kind of weird. It's a social interaction, but it's not like I can pat you on the shoulder. I guess there's that.
Well, but again, this goes back to the impermanence thing, like, we do
Yeah.
social media, we do internet thing, we do all
Yeah.
of these different things. The only thing that we have as our lifeline in life sometimes is our career or our
Yeah.
profession or whatever, I it's such a mistake to try and make that your thing. You're 100% right on that.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never seen anyone do it successfully and, like,
Right.
and not have, their own group, behind the scenes, whatever.
Yeah.
Alright,
Totally.
I got one more question for you. And this is totally self-serving. Listeners, if you want to turn it off, now's the time. We're going to talk about podcasting again for a quick second. We have we have these two new co-hosts, and we haven't selected them yet, but they're both probably going to be brand new to podcasting and or relatively little experience.
Okay.
If you had some advice to give them, what's your sage
Oh,
advice?
good. Okay. This is a little silly question. Is it video or just audio?
I think it's just going to be audio. Yeah.
Audio, good. I mean, or audio focused.
I mean, it's still the same show. They're just taking over for me, kind of a thing like
Yep,
that.
yep. And
Scenario.
you've got their gear set up. You don't have technical stuff that they need.
No,
Okay, so
we have a
first
whole
thing,
editing team and all that kind of stuff that's going to take
okay,
care
so
of them.
first off, don't look at the numbers. Don't look at your download numbers. Seriously, it'll drive you crazy. Strive for engagement and make sure there's places that people can engage you. I mean, what I'm saying on some level, social media is self-administered poison, yet it's an easy place to find listeners and engage with listeners. So make sure that there's pay attention to that. I think that's probably more important even than any kind of download numbers, anything like that. Not every show is going to be awesome. Like not every interview is going to turn out as well as you hoped. Sometimes you'll be off. Sometimes the guest will be off. Sometimes it'll be not as good as you hoped. A lot of times, what I would say is concentrate on the conversation and the interaction, because I typically walk away from almost every interview kind of like, okay, you ever do one late at night and you can't sleep because it was really good and you're like, that was awesome. Just like look for that kind of interaction, and don't to become a good interviewer, you have to listen really well. Some episodes I'm not listening. I'm feeling opinionated, or I'm kind of full of it or something like that, and I don't listen as well as I should. I almost always regret that, because I can talk a lot. I mean, I can talk a lot. I'm trained at talking at this point. Listen well, but also don't feel like you have to stick to your script. It's always good to have some research and maybe some topics you want to cover, but feel free to stray. Hardly ever do I make it through a list of my topics where I haven't gone somewhere else. And also make it personal about the guests if you can. Like, in other words, find out about them. And my goal for a long time was to say, I'm going to get something out of this person that no one else has ever heard. Now, whether or not that's, that John Coyse's favorite color is purple, or the person really, in their spare time is going to play the piano whenever they can, whatever. But if you can make it personal, listeners love that stuff. The stuff that they get that makes it real and makes it human. Because so often I think people use podcasting and broadcasting just as a sales tool, or a self-promotional tool or anything like that. And that is, anyone listening or watching, it's so transparently off-putting to me when it's all like, do I love to help someone promote what they do? Okay, Dave Clark, from Bioclear, is probably one of the most engaging interviews I've interviewed him a million times, and every time he's so dynamic. And yes, he's all about Bioclear, but also what an interesting guy and what a fun guy to talk to. Like, by the end, I'm like, we could go on for another hour. So you can help them promote, or you can promote without it being a sales pitch. Do you know what I'm talking about?
For sure. Oh, no, for sure. Well, and also yourself, though. Like, I don't mind a little bit of self-promotion if you got something going on too. The thing I did learn from you early on, not just the tech and the gear and all this stuff, because, I listen to you guys' interviews. One of the things that you always you were trying to connect, but not for yourself. You're trying to connect for your audience. You wanted the audience to hear something that was gonna actually help them in their day-to-day. Now, if the audience ended up liking you because you did that, you didn't give a crap. I didn't think, maybe you did, but
Uh-huh.
I feel like you thought that you were just a conduit to try and get to, help the audience. It was always about the audience. You didn't care about building numbers. You didn't care
Part
about
of that
sales. You didn't
part
care
of
about
that
any of that kind of
this is
stuff.
the second half. Part of that, I try to make a podcast that I would wanna listen to. That was the whole when the dental hack started, it was like, okay, what kind of podcast would I wanna listen to? Because I listen to podcasts in different places, and I'm like, okay, so what, and so part of that is that you make a podcast that you would wanna listen to, and then so you almost put yourself in the position of your kind of avatar listener, and it'll work with that. In other words, like you said, you become the conduit because it's a podcast you're making or an interview you're making of what you'd wanna listen to. Not about you, but kind of like if you were the listener, what would you want? And I do think that's a very helpful thing for someone learning to interview. Like, okay, what would you want to know about as someone listening to this podcast?
There's a lot of people that didn't make the final cut, by the way, and there's like, 'cause we asked them, like, "What do you wanna be?" The our co-host, and they're like, "Oh, because it'll help me with my brand. It'll help me, get out there." And I'm like, "We're like, no, you're not the right host." So, um, Dr. Alan Mead, you have been, I mean, instrumental in not just podcasting, but you've been a good friend to me personally. We've had lots of great conversations. But yeah, honestly though, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for all of the years of doing this. You guys have a Voice of Dentistry coming up again, right? You guys are restarting that?
We do. It's going to be January 16th and 17th. It's in Arizona, but it's at Justin Moody's Implant Pathway. So it's a smaller venue, and it's a limited tickets. If you have interest, we've got some podcasters that are planning on coming. Limited interest. It isn't a meeting for podcasters, but it might be a meeting for people who are kind of like to listen to podcasts, that sort of thing. So a lot of podcasters will be there, but it's a small party. Good speakers. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's not a super expensive meeting like it used to be, because we used to do it in hotels, and the hotels would eat our lunch. We don't have to do that anymore. So VOD sort of made a weird transformation in a good way. So yeah, if you're interested, it's voiceofdentistry.com, and you can check out the. I don't even know if we have our speaker lineup up yet, but it's going to be pretty good, and it's small. So the tickets, when people say tickets are going to sell out, that's always a BS line, except it's not, because we literally have like fire codes. We can only sell so many tickets. So I expect tickets will sell out if you are interested. So yeah, go check it out. January 16th and 17th, 2026.
We'll put a link in the show notes for that for sure.
Cool.
But thank you again for being here. Thank you for everything, man. I really appreciate you.
You bet. I'm glad we had this chance to talk about it. It's like a whole new thing for you. I know you'll probably talk about that on another podcast, but that's awesome. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. All right, listeners, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to reach out to all of our guests. Give us a follow on social media. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you have a minute, head over to our website and sign up for our newsletter. All right, we'll see you on the next one. This has been a production of Endeavor Business Media, a division of Endeavor B2B.